surprise, an extra episode this week. Bet you didn't think it was going to happen. Really? A back-to-back episode drop? Oh, you did kind of look at 223 like, oh, there was only maybe an hour and a half of content there. That's like half an episode. That's like half a normal podcast. But TCP, what's going on? Well, we got a double. We got a double here. We've actually cheated. What we've done is a normal 3-hour episode. We've now just split into two halves, and we've called them two separate episodes. So we're doing two normal length, normal for other podcasts. Even then, they probably don't do even hour-long episodes. So normal for a long podcast, but quite short by our standards. So we basically do Snyder Cut level podcasts like every week. We're still doing it this week. We just decided to do Snyder Cut Part 1 and Snyder Cut Part 2. And to keep the cuts going, we're doing NA Part 3. How many parts are there going to be? Probably just 3 because we've only got 3 more NA teams, guys.
Also,
listen.
We did the smart thing where we brought in Harsha for the Texas teams, of course, and then also having some knowledge on Twilight. And we brought Avro back for the shit teams at the bottom of the cellar because he has intricate knowledge of casting Valiant last year.
What's funny is you didn't bring Harsha on for Vancouver, which was one of his old teams. So that would have been kind of spicy. So there is that.
Sure.
Unfortunately, won't get his. I think he said a couple things about Vancouver, but he didn't get in too deep. He said just enough to whet the appetite. So obviously, if you missed it, I'd be surprised if you did miss it. But if you did miss it, last episode 223, Harsha on his special guest covered for me, and you guys went over 3 teams. Who'd you talk about again? Toronto and who else?
Both Texas teams.
Toronto, Houston, and Dallas.
Yeah, you got the double Dallas teams in there. Probably for the best. I don't think I would have had a lot to add for a team like Houston. Dallas, I'll just be like, yay, one of the best teams. Woo! Toronto is what it is. It's a team that's better, but probably won't be climbing the ranks. I mean, I gave my thought. I was on the Rival podcast. I was on the TCP podcast as well. I actually did the Toronto preview there. So if you're desperate to know what I think about Toronto, you can just go check that out, where I'm just like, Toronto good, rest of the roster is about where it was. But now, we're getting into the rest of NA. We've got 3 teams left. What do we have again? We have New York, Vancouver, and Paris, and we're done for NA. Things will be heading over to the APAC side as well, where shit's going down. So that'll be fun. Before we head into the episode proper, though, one other bit of news did drop this week. Speaking of shit going down. And that is that the talent for the 2022 season has been announced. And guess what, guys? Some reason they brought me back.
Hell yeah.
So yay. So that's good. That's fun.
And also
some good decisions this year.
Pretty big capacity, right? Like you guys are casting presumably a ton of games, right? Because like the sheer amount of games
front to back.
Oof.
Yeah, there'll be more games than last season, so I definitely have a bigger commitment than last season, which is going to be great. I'm going to enjoy that a lot, and no, I do have to thank the league. They were very good about reaching out to me and all that kind of stuff, because I know there's been a bit of negativity around like, oh, what's going on with the whole cast thing. And I have a bit of a gripe with that as well in terms of where the narrative has been, because for many, many months now. So what's the timeline been like for me? I think it's fine if I say this. This is kind of a leak, but it's not a big deal. They reached out to me really early. I actually was talking to the league even last year about my involvement for this year. Obviously didn't sign and didn't like put it down on paper and, let it sit in the concrete until sometime this year. So it's not like they talked to me last year and I'm just like, yes, get me on straight away. There was a bit of discussion back and forth and we let it simmer over Christmas as everyone's kind of figuring stuff out. But yeah, I have to thank the league for being very on top of at least where I was standing. It felt pretty good, even though I know there were issues with potentially other people as well. So I'm not going to downplay that. But man, sitting on that knowledge for months while you go on Reddit, which was, I get it, that's my mistake. I fucked up. I went on Reddit And people were like, oh, is Uber's the only caster? He's just going to cast everything this year? And I'm just in there like, all right, people just forgot that anyone else exists. That's fine. Just, everyone just like casually forgot that anyone else outside of Uber existed. Nice. Good one, guys.
To be fair, I think they say that based on the assumption that Uber is like on a 2-year contract. They hadn't heard about your contract status, considering like some of the seemingly like unavoidable talents already departed. Like there was some. Yeah, we were scared for you guys.
Here's a tidbit for the audience listening. And unfortunately, the people making wacky statements like that on Reddit are probably not the ones listening, as is usually the case. But I'll just say it anyway. If you really think about it, just hover on top of this one for a little bit. If you really think about it, if I didn't get an offer and I was concerned, I probably would have said something.
Yeah.
So the fact that I stayed quiet the entire time, what does that say? It does. Maybe it says I've been signed. Maybe it says I'm in negotiations. Maybe it just says maybe I just don't give a fuck. Maybe I'm not coming back and I give 0 fucks. It's one of those. It's definitely one of those options, right? So I just found it weird. It's just people's positions like, oh, well, if the so and so's not coming back, then I guess no one's coming back and Uber's going to cast every single game. I'm like, what a weird opinion to have. Like, what a weird take. I don't get that one. It's just like, think about who hasn't said anything and consider why they haven't said anything, and you can figure it out pretty quick. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too logically here, and that's just like, it's too advanced for the average user. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like nobody thinks much deeper than we were already hurt by the departure of one duo. What if the rest also go, right? And I think there's also something to be said about the general like notion. I hope we can turn around a little bit. Like, I think that type of interpretation happens if you have one connotation on your esports, which is mostly negative, right? If the connotations about
people like to go to the negative place as quickly as they can.
Yeah,
potentially.
But that's less true if you have an esports that's hyping, right? Then everyone's like, maybe like we go big slick, right? So yeah, no, I'm positively surprised actually. Like this was like all talent. Apparently, you guys coordinated that rollout well. You got that little video made and whatnot. Like, it seemed
shout out to
pretty
Zoe
tight.
for that. That was her initiative, and she did most of the legwork on that.
Oh, she killed it then.
Couldn't get it approved for the official channel, but felt like it would be cool to do something like that as well.
Yeah.
Just video wise. Yeah, I mean, there's just people gotta, people are always down on Blizzard and Overwatch League when there's a lot to be proud of and B to look forward to and be pleased about, because we're in a very unique position where we have people who literally work as talent also working within the league office, which is really awesome. We have John Speck still in he's in the commercial side now, which is really great for us, and we have other people that are within the league office that are really good at their jobs and who I trust a lot. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm feeling great about it. I got a shit ton of hopium.
Yes.
So yeah, and I think I hope the game will be good too. I hope the game will be a pleasure to watch. Only time will tell on that one. So, apparently one of my listed heroes that I'm playing is Sojourn. I don't know what that means. Who knows? Maybe I'm just talking shit, or maybe anyway. So yeah, cool. So back in the league, very happy about it. Wouldn't want to be anywhere else, and I can't wait to bring the action to the table for this year. Okay, that's the intro. Let's move on. 224, brought to you by Battle Crab, Refine Bean, Bronzebot Buhau, Chare, Commissioner Picasso, Chris R34444, Cash 67, Lolshin, Porkchop Sammy, Rick Sam, Volamel, Smooth Nuts, and Your Misery. Let's talk about some teams I'm not going to be casting. Vancouver, New York, and Paris. And actually, all the NA teams I'm just not going to be casting. So, I'll be watching them from a distance and with some great deal of anticipation, especially when you got great rookies coming on in, especially from the Contenders Career region. Let's zoom in into Vancouver, the other Canadian team, one of Harsh's old teams, the Battle of the North rival against Toronto. already heard some of your thoughts on Toronto. You guys didn't feel great about it. We have the other side of the coin now where, a Vancouver squad, which I think overall, I mean, I'll go through the roster, but also I think overall, it's looking like everybody has upgraded, and that especially does include Vancouver, who did exceptionally poorly last year. I think the narrative is maybe different for Vancouver because they were so poor last year that, like, you look at them now, it's like, whoa, super exciting. Toronto was poor-ish last year, but they still were a lot more respectable than Vancouver for one. Maybe the expectation is different there because they weren't like absolute bottom of the bottom, whereas people maybe you won't be as happy with seeing Toronto just doing a slow shift, either above or below, whereas Vancouver's doing quite a big shift. I mean, we'll have to see because even the teams around them have shifted as well. But I'll read out their roster. Aspire, Shockwave, Psycho on DPS. False Solo Tank. Aztec, Master, Scaripper on the support. With one caveat is that Vancouver did announce they have the capability and I think the desire to sign one more player. I think they said that they weren't finished signing or that they could sign more if they wanted to, which maybe they can and will do and should do because they only have one tank. But yeah,
True.
I don't know if we want to zoom in yet, but does anyone have any initial things to say about this team?
I think initially, I look at this team and I feel like, I'm pulling up to the drag strip. I'm racing for pink slips, 10-second cars, baby. And there's like a Ford F-150 that pulls up, like some weird looking truck, kind of like saddles up next to me.
Google what that is.
It's a truck.
F-150.
Right, you're going to a drag strip and a truck pulls up next to you, and it's just like I'm in my 6 sports car and there's this truck. I'm like, what's this truck gonna do?
What if there's a truck category for drag races?
It probably is. Let's be honest.
This man with this Bible Belt like lore references is just like way over my head, man.
This is definitely a Bible. I just googled. It's definitely a Bible Belt car. This is a car that I'd be like, if I see this car on an open road, I'm like, I'm definitely in the Bible Belt.
See, you think that that's just not the case. You would think it definitely does fit.
Is this a Detroit guy?
I mean, if it was in Detroit, it probably wouldn't have any wheels on it anymore, right?
I got some bad news for you. I think Detroit might be in the Bible Belt then.
Hey, if that extends to all 50, then you know what? Fuck.
You got it. What happened is there's a loose buckle and it just kind of like went way north.
Possibly. It's possible.
And hit Detroit. You're like, you know what? Detroit's part of the belt now.
So what I'm trying to get to is that, I felt like this was like a sleeper car. Like this was the truck that beats the Mustang, the sports car. Just like somehow, some way they've got something done under the hood that, gets them across the line just a little bit faster than some teams you might expect. And I still kind of feel that way. But we'll see. It is still untested.
My brother in Christ. How does that truck beat like one of the supercars you just mentioned? And how does this team even conceptually make it up there with the rest of them? What are you smoking?
Okay, whoa, slow your roll, turbo. Okay, listen, I'm not saying they're gonna be
Ford F-150 goes.
Maybe there's like a sport version that has a few turbos, right? It's possible. I don't think the Vancouver Titans are going to be striking anywhere near supercars, but something that maybe there's something in that mid tier that people aren't necessarily ready to compare to the Titans, and I think they could probably cut in edgewise.
I have a request. I want you to say everything you said in the last 5 minutes, but with no analogies.
I think
so I can understand.
The Vancouver Titans have have upset potential to break into the middle of the table.
Okay. So they're driving a truck in a drag race, but maybe they got some secret stuff inside the truck. Okay.
Correct. Maybe they got some nitrous. Maybe they can go real fast. Maybe they got, I don't know, fucking Mario Kart mushrooms that they're shoving in there. Who knows? But
gotcha.
I think they can fight.
Yiska, your initial thoughts on this team?
So, to go back into the analogy, right? This team feels like you have it's a strong engine with those DPS. I think that
Sure.
DPS line has something to show for itself. It's certainly upgraded. It certainly has like Shockwave Expire, especially. Just like looks honestly pretty crispy on paper. Now the problem is if you're currently driving a tricycle with with faults as the front wheel, which is also not a wheel, it's actually a rectangle. And the brakes are pulled. Right? This man will have to play the entirety of all tanks. And like I'm already skeptical of any tank player being capable of that. The arguably worst tank in the Overwatch League doing that is something completely different, my friend.
Whoa. We haven't even got into tanks yet.
Yeah, he said it.
Oh, holy.
He said it.
That was some spice right there. Holy, okay. We'll zoom out. We're going to get back
starter.
to false a little
Let's
bit
say
later.
starter. Everything else is probably unfair.
All right, fair enough. Because Vancouver have a crazy strength of schedule, at least in the first stage. I think this is, I'm going to give Joseph a bit of credit here. I think they're going to nos themselves up real fast in that first stage, give people some false sense of hope, and then probably still not really get too far in the rest of the year. Because, here we go, you ready? Their opening matches are Boston, London,
winnable,
Mayhem, New York,
winnable,
and then it gets a little bit worse. Now, then they do it. Then they do Atlanta Shock, which is okay.
Yeah,
well,
that's tough.
They're not gonna win those ones. But the first four are all maybe winnable.
Yeah.
Even New York. Even if you pull up to New York, we're not ready, and it's not the good meta for them. We're gonna get to the New York preview soon, and we're gonna talk a little bit more in depth about where their issues could be. But it's not impossible. It's not impossible for Vancouver to win that game. It would probably be even possible for Vancouver to beat Atlanta or Shock, but hey, New York's you could legitimately go 4-2 is your opening stage score, and that is good enough to get you into top 8 of the tournament. Top 8. That's probably good enough to get you in the top 8. If you get a 4-2.
Yeah,
4-2 is enough. Yes.
I mean, that's crazy. That's a crazy start for the Vancouver Titans.
And we've talked about how much confidence impacts teams. Like that's not something to sleep on.
Yeah, you know what's also sucking? If you have the easiest strength of schedule in stage 1 and win 0 matches.
Bro, that'd be something. That would be something. I mean, at that stage, both Toronto teams just win no matches then, I guess. No. Both Toronto teams, both Canadian teams. There's only one Toronto team. Because I can't even find Toronto's second game. Oh, here we go. No, Toronto be fine. They look like they have a lot of winnable games as well. Who knows? But yeah, do you really think Vancouver could go 0-6? I mean, it's possible, but Boston's pretty... I think London's definitely beatable for Vancouver, sure.
No, they are, but that's the 50-50. And everyone else is like 75.
Wow.
You're that bullet. I mean, it feels like you're that low on the Titans then.
Yes, but the thing is, like, let's be real. I think there's a world where they just like realize they are in deep shit and they get another tank player. Getting another tank player is pretty challenging in this market. Which
is it?
I think so, dude. Like, who is left in terms of an A player with an NA visa, right? Like someone that's currently there.
I mean, you're not. Quick. Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, let's get into. Are you about to mention something? Because I'm about to zoom in on the tanks because we're talking about the tanks already. So we might as well zoom in on the S in the tanks was inside parentheses, but zoom in on the tank. Open parentheses S close parentheses in case they sign another one. So again, I did say they have the capability and they have the desire to maybe sign another player. Just want to see if they act on that. Are they going to do that or not? I think, funnily enough, because we kind of talked about this before we started the recording, is there is a world. I don't know this. I'm just assuming. Maybe Vancouver would have looked at someone like Kaluge and thought, probably not. Then we could get Kaluge, but might just give that one a pass. And then Shock signed Kaluge, and now Vancouver's like, wait a minute. We could have just had Kaluge. Why didn't we just get Kaluge?
Yeah.
So,
So fried wiener
might be
this
kicking
again.
themselves up. So,
Oh boy.
Pulse is an off tank, right?
Yes.
So ideally they get a main tank player.
Yeah.
Okay, well Rhino's 16, so that's not going to be
That's
possible.
not happening.
You're not
Hey,
flying.
hydration's
roll
available.
Uh,
Hydration's available. Done. Easy money.
Oh.
who's
I don't
What
like
about
that problem.
seasons from Northwood University and Solaris?
yeah.
If
Eric
it's-
says Ben Best. You have to get a visa though. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I'm
Before
blanking
ever in
on
visa hell.
who's the former Gladiators tank. That's Rhine, like the Rhine Beast. Scandinavian guy, Cloudy.
Alex Cloudy.
Oh, Cloudy. Pff, I was gonna say somebody's so off.
I was gonna say. I was
okay
gonna
with Cloudy.
say. I forgot his name now.
Yeah.
From
He's
season
an ex-
1.
He's an ex-League of
Fraggy?
Legends player.
Oh, Bishu.
No.
Oh,
Bishu. Yeah.
Bishu.
I'll say Bishu. Bishu. No, I think they'd want to. Why don't you explain? We're talking about options for Vancouver, and we haven't even talked about the one player they have yet. Like Yiska, you have a gripe here, so why don't you open up on your gripe? Point to me on the voodoo doll where they hurt you.
Well, I think once again, it is very hard to like we in the Harsha episode we already talked about, like, if you think about the best tank players in Overwatch League history, then you're like quick to go to Super and Smurf, and even these guys had to split the main tank role. Now you're giving people the off tank role as well and say, please play that shit. That
Really quick. Not every team decide to split the main tank role.
right, and
That's not a normal thing.
yeah, that's true. Even though sometimes that also like hurt teams. Not in Shanghai's case because Fate is cracked, but nobody wants to give him the laurels and doesn't understand that getting to split playtime is a big competitive advantage that you have in your individual skill, but and still like the other players get gapped. But yeah, I think like it's a very, very hard task where you need an exceptionally skilled player. I'm not saying False is a terrible player, right? I'm saying this is a very, very hard situation that I don't think he's up for in terms of the skill departments and like that. Just like it's a rookie after all. That's another thing that's coming up. And also, I'm just straight up giving you the scrim juice. It's also not translating there. Right, so I think like this is a situation that they need to find a solution for, and I think they might. I think that's sort of like the caveat I want to give here, because if you're zooming back, if you're trying to clip me out of context, if they're actually signing another tank, and you're posting this clip to me after the season, going, like they are actually not like that bad. Well, did they sign another tank? Right, and if they didn't, and they are like somehow mid tier, okay, and then please pound me for that, right? But
Pound him, yeah.
like
I've never seen False play in my life. I can't even begin to tell you what I think about False.
I mean, I'm right there with you. My only addition to that is that I have enough trust in the people that I have heard or that have seen him play that they do think he's good, but from everything that Yiska is kind of like pointing out is that
okay, good in what sense? Is it good in the same scale where woeful is the other side of the spectrum, or I'm not letting it go?
No, apparently not. You bitter X. Holy.
Is he better or worse than Mac?
Well, I don't know. That's a great question.
Dude, Mag's amazing though.
Oh,
Mag is amazing.
So if he's then worse than Mac, then he has to be woeful, right? Is that how it works?
Sure. Yeah, that's exactly how that works.
Thank
You're
you.
right. You're right.
Thank you. I understand it now.
Joe's scale is binary. It's 1 or 0. It's amazing or woeful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's better. I'll take that over every team just being mid and colorless. And
The thing is, like, it's actually not strictly true because there's actually 3 phases. it starts off with good. So Shanghai is good. And like teams like Atlanta is good, and like Gladiators is good. Then teams like, let's say the Shock start being slightly woeful. Like Jester's already very woeful. And then there's the lower threshold where for some reason it then flips, and then London and Vancouver are pretty good. That's the qualified. The pretty then completely flips the good around.
Those words all came out of my mouth. You're right. Exactly. Those are true and factual statements.
Is it a circle where you go so woeful it comes back to good again? Like, what is that? Is that how it works?
A circle of life.
In his strange little machination,
in his German fairy tale, it's
100%. It's Hansel and Gretel, and then how he thinks my brain works, or the words that I apparently say. I'll take whatever I can get. At least I'm memorable, right?
So, all right. So, Yiska's not confident about False being the only
apparently not
on the roster.
Not. Look, dude.
I would also say, without having seen any False gameplay, I would also say that it's probably not wise to bank your entire season on a single tank, and especially not if they're a rookie. So that's probably a little bit dangerous, and it's. I mean, you are prone to some real potential issues if this one tank isn't like an insane talent. Now, if this was, let's say, hypothetically, because you said Maggery, hypothetically, if Mag was still a rookie and you brought him in this year to be a solo tank in Overwatch 2, I might give you that one because Mag had an unbelievable contenders run, one of the best contenders talents. I'm forgetting that Washington's last season existed for this example, just so we're clear. Then yeah, I'll give it to him. But unless you're like that level of a prospect, I don't know. I don't know that I would. I don't even know that I'm. Again, I don't want to get too deep in New York because we're going to get there soon. I don't even know that I would trust Kellen solo tanking for New York just yet. And
yes,
I think he's the number one prospect coming out of Korea for tanks. That's high praise. That's very high praise. And I don't think I would even trust him to solo tank. So that coming through, and with False obviously not being the highest praised rookie talent coming out of NA, it's also NA, Omega lol. Yeah, I mean it's super dangerous, and I would say that based on the fact that Vancouver said they can potentially sign more players, they probably should target a main tank player somewhere.
Yep, I agreed. Like, even as much as like I'm, the copium fucking snow dust sniffer that it apparently just huffs the mountains in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. You don't want a solo main tank in a game with a reworked solo tank position with multiple reworked tanks and additional tanks coming in the near or not too distant future, right? That goes without saying. So yes, I would agree 100% with everything you guys are saying. They should probably sign another tank, period.
Yeah. So Fried Wiener's coming back. Let's go, baby. Ooh, let's go. Yeah, I mean, there's players available. I just looked at Iron's available, but then he's also an off tank as well, so maybe not. There's gigs actually there. I don't know if they would go for something like Gig. I have no idea how good Gig is anymore. Fellow God Squad member Gig. So I'm just throwing names. I'm like just throwing darts on a dartboard here, just trying to land on anything. I'm sure Vancouver will figure it out. As tank, I think we're all unanimously agreeing on is not really their position of strength. Let's talk about one of their positions of strength. Maybe this is the only position of strength, the DPS line. This is the exciting part about the Vancouver lineup. So, as a reminder, Aspire, Shockwave, Psycho. So, Aspire coming through from Toronto, his debut season, brilliant stuff. Really saved Toronto's bacon last year in many ways. One of the breakout players, I would say, as well, like in a surprising way.
Yeah.
One of the breakout players for sure.
Yep.
Shockwave, who had his breakout year 2 seasons ago now on the Vancouver Titans. He started on the Titans.
Yep.
Did well. Got given a shot on Fusion, which on paper sounded like a really good place to be. It took him a while to get into the country. I'm sure he appreciated the experience. Got some actual stage, quote unquote stage. Got some actual match time as well. But unfortunately, Fusion was a bit of a mixed bag result-wise last year, so not the best end result for Shockwave, despite it being, or what it should have been. It just ended up being the opposite of the expectation everyone set for Philly. So now he's back on Titans, but I think we still respect him as a good player, even though Fusion didn't have the best season. I think everyone still gives him benefit out and respects that Shockwave is still a good player. And then you have Psycho, who is another player, like, I literally have never seen this guy play before. So I'm just I will let that one just simmer a little bit for everyone else. Well,
I mean, let's be
honest.
right? This lineup at DPS is their strongest. Period. Like, I don't think I'm speaking for anybody when I say that. I'm pretty high on their supports, but when you look at Aspire's debut season, coming in last year, playing on a team he really shouldn't be performing all that well on, and looking quite good, much in the same way Shockwave did for the Titans the season prior, like you mentioned. I think that speaks a lot to the caliber of player these two are, and I expect them to do more than what they've shown in the past, if I'm going to be completely honest. I expect these two to have a very impressive season, as much as this may be a middling, battled team that, trades blows with some gatekeepers here and there. I think it's probably going to be off the back of Aspire and Shockwave. You look at, how many players in Overwatch history have come from bad teams, like, who stand out, come from like mid to poor teams, but like are the beacons of hope. They are like the flag bearers, and it's very painfully obvious that they don't really belong on this team. And you kind of coalesce them into a DPS duo. Yeah, I have high expectations for Aspire and Shockwave. I think they're going to do good things, and yeah, I think Titans are probably going to win some games off the back of these two playmakers.
Yeah, I think that's very possible. The problem is, seemingly every hit scan position is now stacked in the league, and I think, we talked about it with Toronto. Like, this is a good DPS line that could theoretically be stronger than Toronto's DPS line. But, like, they're not stronger than a lot of other DPS lines on paper in the league, right? Like, they're definitely very good players, but, like, or not very good. My problem is, once again, like, we're in a war with adjectives at this point. Like, it's all relative to each other, right? They are... Like, you guys know that I was borderline simping for Shockwave for a long time. I thought he had a lot of potential. I thought, like, it's an unfortunately tragic career in how this transpired, because not only did he make his debut on a pretty mediocre team and stood out, then rightfully got the call up, but then what should have been his absolute breakout season just turned into a visa disaster. And now it seems like, I'm not sure if he didn't have better offers based on that, or like if Titans just made him an offer he couldn't refuse. But this is really like the type of situation where careers go to die, if I'm being perfectly honest, right? Like, this is, if you're, it's really hard to stay hyped and stay hot and stay like this promising character for 3 seasons before everyone thinks of you as OG,
Sure, yeah, agreed.
I think I can see where you're going with the career dying part, because Vancouver has been that for like 2 seasons straight now, where you're fried wiener, you go there from Atlanta, and then just you don't have a career anymore.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said that they probably just promised the players that they were going to sign other like really good players, and I think if you look at this squad in the context of prior seasons, it's not that bad. But like, now is everyone's cracked, dude. The new level is different now. Like, you don't have truly awful players anymore. Like, we don't need to talk about that. Like, and I don't want to say truly awful about Rolf, but like that Aztec is a massive upgrade on Rolf is no discussion, right? That Massa is an upgrade, like a runner-up Overwatch League title winner. Is like an upgrade over Fire is also like going to be true, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Everyone agrees with you except for Fire Season.
right.
Yeah.
Like the DPS line is also improved. I would say. I think like Linkshire is once again the typical case of like a career dying somewhere, right? Like Dalton, Teru are
Yeah,
players that probably like would have not gotten offers elsewhere. Maybe Dalton. I honestly like Dalton is like the type of player that I thought like could you have held out and maybe had someone like take a chance on you on a better team. Now you're probably never going to be an Overwatch League professional again, right? But like all things considered, like they upgraded on all positions, but it's somehow still in the context of the league just as unimpressive.
And that's the same argument you can use for Toronto as well, right? And you can even use the opposite. It's the same argument, but in the opposite direction, where it's just like, yeah, man, Toronto upgrade. And I hate to bring up Toronto because we should be talking about Vancouver, but I do have a point to make here. Is that Toronto upgraded, but it feels like they haven't made any forward momentum because everyone else upgraded. And in fact, you even have to compare them to Vancouver, where because Vancouver also upgraded, it feels like Vancouver have comparatively done a bigger upgrade than Toronto has on their roster. So that's where the weirdness comes in. But even with the Vancouver upgrade, yeah, I still don't feel great about the team because, like Yiska said, the best part about the roster is the DPS. But even then, it's hard for this DPS line to compete against the truly good DPS lines that the rest of the league has, because you don't have to go too far and then you start fighting. Like, for fuck's sake, Boston even have striker. You know what I mean? So it's like you don't have to go too far to suddenly find a team with some cracked DPS on their roster.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Like, it's gonna take some massive, just whether it's the yips, whether you're choking, whether it's internal shit, whether a player, unfortunately is ill and can't play. Like, that's the type of stuff that you're looking for like Toronto to like get into like stage title contention, right? Like that's just not the caliber of team they are. And I kind of like, I think that's okay for this franchise. But to be perfectly honest, I think like if you take this not as a rebuild year, I think that is a little bit too narrative. But I don't think they're too many moves away from being like a genuinely like solid mid team with upside. I think they're like battling for that mid table like designation right now.
And I think they're a team that can win games this year. They're not going to be. I care if they are a, what's the term again? Entertainment thief team. I don't think they're going to be that this year. So that's a plus side. Let's talk about the supports now. Where, excuse me, we have 3 supports. You already mentioned you mentioned Aztec and Master already. Excuse me, I ate and I'm just fucking burping and shit. Scar Ripper is on this roster as well, who I don't have a lot of info on. Just another one of those EU players that, like Psycho, I'm like, well, sadly haven't seen them. Unlucky. Aztec and Master. So I can't talk about Aztec. This is going to be my strength on the podcast because Aztec didn't get to play a lot last season, and most people don't really know too much about him. He was a Toronto bench rider, so he gets the pop over from the rival Canadian team. I did get to cast this guy in Contenders though, and I gotta say, in Contenders, there was a point where I'm trying to remember what season. It must have been 2020 season 1. And I'm like, I think this is the best flex support talent coming out of Korea. I think I legitimately held that opinion about Aztec at one stage. And I stand by that because to me, he was fucking he was cracked. He was so good when he was on when he was on World Games, so WGS. And WGS were not a great team. This was a struggling team that was not getting a lot done. And then he comes through. He actually wins, by the way, at Contender Season 2020 Season 2. Season 1, they do well. Season 1, they could have been won. The entire 2020 season for WGS was so good. And this is, by the way, the Season 2 2020, that O2 Blast sucked. They sucked that season. So you didn't have this overwhelming force O2 Blast. And for anyone asking, yeah, Finn was playing that, yeah. Finn, proper Pelican, Yakpon, Kalios, Neko. That sounds like a pretty good team. They were all on that Season 2 roster for O2 Blast, and it did not go well. This is not going to be an O2 Blast discussion, but I'm just saying, like, there was a time and a place where in my head, I legitimately believed and said, and still hold this belief at that particular time, Aztec was better than Finn at that moment in time. I don't think that's true today. In Season 2 of 2020, I did believe that. Yes, that was true to me. And then Aztec went to Uprising Academy. I don't know what the fuck happened there. And then, we zoom in and then boom, he's gone. Now he was in Toronto, didn't do too much, and now he's on Vancouver. I think a lot of people are like, well, this guy can't be that good. Toronto kind of sucked and he never played, so don't know what opinion they should have about him. But he was super solid. Anna was great. Moira was really good, even though I think most people are like, well, it's just Moira. You just autopilot the hero. But he like Fielder, he does some crazy stuff that gets some ults really quickly. He had some of the best coalescence timings I saw in Contenders career for that year. So solid player that I don't think actually had the time or the space or the opportunity to show what he's capable of. I'm just hoping he's not washed. Like his time on Toronto wasn't wasted, and that he's not super washed. That's all I'm hoping for, because I think he's got potential. I don't know anything about Sky Ripper, but I do know something about Aztec, and I can go on about Master as well. But long story short, Master was a very undervalued, extremely good player on Atlanta that gave them a lot to work with to help them get the second place. I think he was critical in that Lucio role. So.
I don't think that designation's too far off of like a lot of these other just flat out good pieces without any kind of like caveats or question marks or asterisks, right? Like, I don't think Shockwave was properly valued by the league. I don't think Aspire was properly valued by the league. You talk about Aztec, maybe Aztec wasn't properly valued by the league. I think the Titans have landed a lot of really, really good pieces. Yes, are there holes? 100%. We don't know how Psycho's going to be. False set solo tank. Yeah, that's a very obvious and 100% a huge question mark. For Sky Ripper, again, rookie coming in, a great double flex support option, maybe cuts in Aztec playtime on some heroes. Maybe I've heard good things. Again, not a savant when it comes to like looking at EU. Definitely didn't have the time. But from everybody that I talked to, he's high on their lists. Like, I trust those people. I trust these coaches. I trust these analysts. I trust, the people that have watched him play and grown. So I expect some sizable, sizably good performances for a rookie coming in. I don't know. I like this team. I don't think they're that bad.
Who are these dumbasses on TCP? They don't even watch Europe. Fuck. Who are these guys? Get them off. Get them off the show. Fuck me. Who are these guys don't even watch Europe. Yiska, you're from Europe. What do you think?
That's my life is finite. I employ a stoic strategy, and life is too short to watch Contenders EU.
Yeah, he's too busy just sliding my DMs.
Sounds very European. Okay, the support line though, Aztec, Master, Scarippa.
I mean, theoretically, okay, so I'm not going to fault anyone not succeeding on Toronto, just because that franchise in itself is a question mark to me, whether or not that it facilitates talent well. I think Masters, of course, have very strong main supports that probably was underrated last season, or probably even in the context of his entire career has been underrated. So I'm not concerned about their backline. I think that backline is like up to par with all the mid-tier teams except Toronto, because Toronto's backline is just like, I mean, Toronto is basically, the like dude with like big biceps, but like always skip leg day, right? Like just has stick legs, and then like if it gets to a fight, he just burns out like in 5 seconds.
Just don't let him hit you and just run around him. Yeah.
And I don't know. Like the backline, I have no issue with. Also heard good things about Skyripper. That's a British Hurricane alumni, right? So yeah, I think like in terms of how that backline is built, I have no issues. it's my thing is the confusion here, where if you're doubling up on roles in Overwatch 2, then not doubling up on tank is the weirdest part, right? Like doubling up on support is weird.
Hey, 4 supports, 1 tank. Ask Chengdu. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, so like I feel like if they'd probably be completely fine with Aztec, Massa, and then just like get another off tank in or main tank in or some. If they can do that, I think I'm a little bit more hopeful for them.
It has to be an NA tank now because assuming they can't get an EU or Korean tank anymore, so that does limit their options.
Yes.
Let's close up on Vancouver because we spent a lot of time on them now. Let's just go over some very quick overall impressions and maybe even a ranking of where you think their realistic position in North America is. Who would like to start?
I think I think I stand with what I said. To give a proper like metric, I think I had like Boston mid pack. I think I had somebody like right below them. Leave a comment below on who I'm blanking on. I think they're like in that discussion, but I also see where Yiska's coming from. Like I can see them just bottoming out just because of how good some of these teams are. But I do look at that strength of schedule and I'm like, these teams are these are beatable teams. Like these aren't just like a entertainment stealer like you mentioned, AVRL. Like this is gonna be a team that can compete. Although probably pretty close.
But how far can they compete?
I'm gonna say maybe peaking at like middle of the table and possibly being like a bottom NA team. Like the range is wide just because of how like dead middle, like 12, so like 7, 7 to like the last 7. Yeah, I think that's like the
7th.
Yep, I think they can compete with a team like Boston.
You think that's generous?
I would say so. I think
okay.
From 7 to 12, I probably land somewhere.
I'm not letting this man get away with this. Give me a team that has a higher chance of being last.
London.
Okay. Is there any other team?
Higher chance of being last?
No, right? No. No, there isn't. No, there isn't, Joe. We both know that's not true. And even London is like, you're not sure of that.
No, I'm pretty, as much as it pains me to say, like, just because of like who's on that team, like how like much they're like due for a good season. No, with what's gone on, no, that's, what can you do? That's just a borked situation.
Okay, I'm gonna throw a bone to Joe because the mid-table call is not impossible when you consider that, in my opinion, mid-table right now legitimately is a mix of New York, Toronto, and Justice.
Yeah.
Those are the 3 teams I have in my exact middle of the table. So you are saying that Vancouver could maybe beat one of them?
Yes.
Consistently beat one of them?
Yes. I look at New York and I'm like, bro, we have, and we'll get to them. I know we'll get to them, so I won't spend too much time. We don't have too much time. What are you doing with this fucking roster? I look at Toronto. Go watch our Toronto episode. I don't think this team's very good. Justice, they're woeful. Let's be honest. Like, I think this is the Titans year, baby. Let's go Titans. Hashtag bricked up.
Like, I think all 3 of those teams between New York and Toronto and Justice would have this all 3. One out of those 3 teams would have the shit in the bed, while Vancouver also have an amazing season. So 2 things going to happen. Vancouver have to overperform, and one of those other 3 teams have to underperform. And that includes the Justice, who you describe as woeful. They would have to have that woeful year, whereas I think Yiska and I had a bit more optimism towards where their roster could be. But I think we all could agree that Toronto, New York, and Washington have higher peaks than Vancouver by quite a fair margin, especially New York. New York's peak is unreal, which means it's far more likely that all 3 of those teams don't fall too far down within striking range of Vancouver, which again would also require Vancouver to step up big time. So I say it's not impossible, but would require a lot to happen.
Oh, 100%. I don't think it's I don't think it's like I wouldn't place a bet on it. I do feel strongly that they could probably compete though.
Joe, how far down could Vancouver be? Do you think they could come last? Could
yeah,
they come
100%.
last?
Yeah, easily.
So they could 100%. Come last. Okay.
Yes, but I think that's more to the difficulty of that like bottom tier that like it's gonna be a slogfest. Yeah. Like there's not like a clear outside of London. I think Vancouver could just flounder as if False is just as bad as Yiska thinks he is, you know, and this team just can't get their shit together. Yeah, they could be last, 100%.
Yiska.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the last place team in the Overwatch League in 2022.
Just straight up last, like 20th place.
I mean, now you got to be fair because like London is in deep shit having to replace a flex support this deep. So maybe it's London now, for being fair. But like, let's say the non-handicap teams, yeah, they are.
Yep.
It's very likely they're going to toilet bowl it out with London.
Yeah.
For the
Valiant's about to get 5 members of Chengdu's. I mean, it makes sense. I get it. What's the peak? Like, what's the highest you're willing to give Vancouver realistically? You're saying they could be the bottom, or what's the if Vancouver were to perform well, like quite good, what is the highest you're willing to give them?
9th in NA.
9th.
Mm-hmm.
So that's still bottom 4, 9, 10, 11, 12,
yeah.
Bottom 5.
Yeah.
Bottom 5, is it? 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah.
Were they last season?
Okay. I think that's pretty good. I think, yes, that's an improvement. Are you kidding me? They were bottom 2 NA last season.
They were actually last, yeah.
Yeah, they were last NA very clearly. It was an entertainment stealing, you know.
But I think last year, though, last year, you knew their team was...
Yes.
There's no way. You looked at the roster quality, you're like, there's simply no way. Here, you look at their roster quality, you're like, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. Which is why I also think the 9 to 13 is pretty fair. I think they're definitely looking like a 9 to 13 team. I'm not going to give them enough to beat Justice Toronto or New York.
No.
Even though I said the New York game and their strength schedule is winnable, that's like, again, it's winnable in the sense that New York would have the shit the bed and Vancouver had to play really well. So, yeah, I think a 9 to 13 realistically is also my ranking for them, with probably leaning heavier towards the 10, 11, 12, 13, or even maybe 11, 12, 13. Really depends.
Reasonable.
Because I think Mayhem in Paris could be reasonable, so that would put them above Vancouver.
Agreed.
Alrighty, so Vancouver have upset potential. Realistically, not expecting too much, but they have improved massively from last year, and most importantly, they're not going to be, I think, a team that is going to go completely winless. Not that they didn't go winless last year, but they almost did. They're not a team that's going to risk going winless again, which is important to me because I want to be able to watch them play and consider maybe they could win this game and not just assume they will lose all the time. So I'll keep my eyes peeled. That's going to be Vancouver Titans. Let us move on to our next team. We talked about them a little bit already. I'm going to put the background up. And it is none other than the New York Excelsior. So, 5-man roster. Let's go through them real quick. Because there's only 5 people. You don't have to take too much time here. Flora, Yaki, Kellen, Myeongbong, Gangnam Jin. And just by the way, there is technically a 6th player, just no one knows who the hell it is. No one knows who this 6th player is. Welcome to the New York Excelsior team preview for 2022. They have shut up, Yiska. It's me. Don't leak it. It's me. They have Kuki on the staff as well as the new head coach, with Undyne as their assistant coach. This is just kind of like Florida version 2 in a way. You know, you bring over Kuki, he brings over Yaki and Gangnam Jin, And soon they probably get Gargoyle, and then there you go. That's Florida Mayhem again. But a very impressive looking team. I think they kept some. I mean, just one player. They kept a really good player in Flora. Picked up one of the hottest rookies in Kellen. Got two very capable flex supports, Myeongbong and Gangnam. No main support is maybe going to hurt them a little bit. Yaki and Flora is crazy. Yaki's still one of the best talents in the league.
100%, yeah.
Hard carried Florida Mayhem last year, even though they were losing. That was impressive. So, I mean, New York as a team have, I think, one of the highest ceilings in the league, but because they are so inflexible, it feels like they are easily screwed by meta. What do you guys think?
Oh, 100%. I think you take the words right out of my mouth. Like, if I'm rolling dice on teams, right? I look at New York and I think they can strike fairly reasonably high given like a good ideal situation for them, but consistency is not what I am seeing from this team at the 13th of April. Is this month April? Yes, it is. Okay. I just can't. How do I look at this team as it stands right now with 5 players? We're less than a month out. We're nearly to beta. You need to be making some moves. Like, this is the team that like we were waiting. Like we're pushing back our dates to like record because we're excited for this team to be making some moves, bringing some people over. Let's get that part 2 NYXL teaser trailer opening, anime, whatever bullshit. Like, this is just the start, right? And as we inch closer, I'm starting to wonder if it's not just a start, if that's just it. And that has me concerned.
Now, let me bring up one other thing before we talk about any specific member on the team. Their ability to sign players now is not good.
Yeah.
Because I assume they're going to go for Korean players. They're full Korean team. But they're physically in North America, in the United States. So visas are now an issue. And they already, by the way, I believe they had a bit of a delay getting to NA anyway in the first. They're there now, so you don't have to be worried. They are all there. They don't have an all those situation. They currently, I believe they're all currently in NA, but even in this offseason, there was a minor delay for them. So getting a visa for a Korean player to go to North America now is like, it'll take some time. If they don't figure it out and figure out what they're going to do with their roster, they're stuck with the 5 people they've got. And that's it. That's literally it. Nothing else to work with there. Just the 5 they have is the 5 they will have for however long, because they simply can, unless there's like, you can't even get, I was going to say, you can't even get someone like Venom. Not that you would, but like Venom is is it Venom a North American player? He was Korean, obviously, but
yeah.
Was he in Korea or was he in North America? I don't even know. I can't remember. But hypothetically, you'd have to get someone like Bishu, who's actually American, but he's Korean.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you have to, like, that legitimately is like someone you'd have to get, because you cannot get anyone else, because if you want to get them from Korea, it's going to take too long.
Yep. And I mean, like, the base of this team is good, but I cannot, like, it would be a miracle, and I do believe that if this team was consistently like good the entire season, it would have to be like a very rigid meta, and they would have to start off like on the right foot. It just seems so unlikely to me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they can't get Bishu because he's a manager on Houston Outlaws currently.
Okay, never mind.
Unlucky.
Yeah. I think all we said about the other teams, about the inflexibility, about one main tank, about like those things, I'll also say the 6th signing doesn't help with that whatsoever. Like, this is really like rolling the dice. And maybe we find out something about Overwatch 2 and the nature of it, where like sticking with the same 5 is just the way to go. There was some argument that this was maybe true for Overwatch 1, you would say.
Okay. That, Yiska, it is true, but only when you find the exact 5 you're looking for.
Right.
When the season hasn't even started, we're not even into beta.
Yes.
The teams have barely played enough of the new game. You do not have that 5. I guarantee you don't have that 5 yet. The only teams I would trust to have that 5 are Dragons, and guess what? They even have 8 players.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, fuck me. The team that most likely has the 5 don't even have 5 players, they have 8.
Yeah, I think that is a very important distinction to make. If I'm, for instance, the Shanghai Dragons, I assign 12 players, have my block of marble, and then over the season I just like shizel like this perfect like statue out of it by like.
You meant chisel?
Chisel? Is it not chisel? Oh well, chisel.
Yeah. No, it's not shit in German. No.
Well, anyway, then you like. It makes sense that you then are able to. You're very unlikely to, like, out of the Mines of Moria, just, like, rip a Marvel statue out of the ground and have it be perfect by the instant, right? Like, the process of elimination over the actually applied season is what makes the starting 6 the strongest option. You would say, right? And even then, the starting 6 was not always the key to Overwatch 1, as we saw, like, with the flexibility of the San Francisco Shock in the main tank position, or even on the DPS position, right? And I think that, like, starting with 5 is already, like, putting it all on black and, like, rolling, right?
Yeah.
It's not even strategic gambling. It's not like you're playing poker where you're like, oh, you know, I'm gonna wait for the turn on this in this hand. You are literally just playing roulette. Like, I just put it on this number and just see where the ball rolls. You're playing full RNG. You know, you're not even applying strategy to the RNG. You're just doing full RNG.
Yep.
Look, and if this team had stayed in APAC, I mind this significantly less because of the potential of mid-season pickups. Right?
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
But now that they are in NA,
any pickup at any time doesn't, you know, mid-season, pre-season, anytime. Yeah. I mean, they can just simply get a Korean play whenever they want.
Yes.
But now, no, not possible.
Yeah. So I feel like this is a team that goes on streaks based on meta.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're unlucky, then there's 0 metas that work for you. And if you're lucky, then there is 1 meta that works for you, and it lasts like 3 stages.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So this
Which
is
in this
very
case will be a double
volatile
flex support meta.
Yes.
They need a flex support meta, don't they? Yeah. Because somebody going to be playing Lucio on that team otherwise.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's only the beginning of their problems. You'd also have to have, you know, you'd have to assume Kellen is good on the off tanks, and, you know, if it's a double hit scan, you need Yaki to, I mean, I'm sure Yaki's hit scans might be good enough. Or if let's say it's a double projectile, you're going to need Flora to play projectile. I mean, I don't even want to begin to think about what that looks like.
Yeah.
So, without further ado, let's actually get into the roster. Where do we even start? Why don't we start at the best part? Well, debatably one of the best parts. Let's just talk about Flora and Yaki. Probably their best. Well, Yaki is probably just their best player. If you had to name one player on this team and say that's their best player, probably Yaki, right? Does anyone disagree with that? It's probably Yaki.
Yeah, it's probably Yaki.
So, super flexible, projectile, some hit scan in there. Tracer, very important. It's got that going for him. It's going to be their standout player. Is this going to be another season where Yaki is just going to have to hard carry, you know, put the entire team in his backpack, just like the Florida Mayhem of last year? Is that what's going to happen again?
Well, like it kind of has to. Like we talked, you know, previously about like the soul of a team, and it feels like Yaki is going to be like the focal point. If NYXL are doing well, it's going to be off the back of Yaki. Like he's consistently been a playmaker throughout his entire career. The question now with New York is, does he have the right support? Not in terms of the role, but just like the pieces around him. When you if we're gambling and we're streaking poorly and our confidence is down and we're putting all of our cards on our 1-star player to like get things done, and that's no discredit to like somebody like Kellen or Flora, like good enough to be in the league 100%, genuinely might be good, but Yaki's a little bit different. Yaki's genuinely like kind of a playmaker, kind of is like one of the only people like that has perennially been somebody to like turn games on their own. And it has to. If NYXL do well, it's off the back of Yaki. Full stop.
Yeah.
What about Flora?
I mean,
Does it do anything
Flora.
for you?
No,
Really?
No. All right.
not really.
No, I disagree. I think Flora is like probably couldn't really shine last season, but that's a top.
100%.
That was a
I
top
think he
tier
still
rookie
did.
prospect last year.
He still did shine though. He shined even though New York struggled. Is my take.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I want to almost go as far as to say that like Flora is like 95% of the talent that Yaki is.
Okay.
He's like, he definitely has S tier potential. But he has to deliver, right? Like that has to be something that works out.
Is he kind of like the new Glister?
Ooh, wait.
Do you know what I mean? Like kind of the new Glister.
Yeah, I like that.
Like, oh, here's this exciting new hit scan talent that has the potential to be S tier.
Yep.
You know,
I like that comparison. Yeah.
got a bit of a Glister energy, even though Glister's still in the league. But it's funny,
Right.
Glister doesn't have his own Glister energy anymore, but Flora does.
Right.
I like that.
Yeah.
Also, as Eric is pointing out, very highly rated on the rank ladder, is one of the only players in 4700 currently being gatekept by Proper. Understandable.
True. Not
Yeah.
something to completely discount, but yeah, I'm good. not that I would replace him, but it's not like I haven't seen enough of him, and yes, I trust and believe that somebody like AVRL, would know.
I just enjoy supply factual evidence. Joe's like, I'm good. Like,
I mean, being highly rated on ladder, miss me
God.
if I'm gonna be completely honest.
Yeah.
Like, and
I mean,
I don't hold him.
That wasn't the only thing said, but
No,
sure.
and that's not what I'm saying. But when you look at that last season, it's not his fault either. New York was also just kind of mid then too. And it doesn't feel like this season is any different, if I'm going to be completely honest. Like, yes, this is a talented DPS duo, but can they consistently field the roster that the Overwatch League and Overwatch 2 is going to throw at them? I certainly hope so.
I agree that this team has a similar feel as NYXL had last season. In terms of like they have some like incredible rookie. They have an incredible rookie, arguably the best rookie coming in.
Sure.
They have, or sorry, outside of Proper. Sorry, I'm still in the improper like mind frame.
Yeah.
They have a bunch of like really good pieces. On paper, you think they should be capable of doing something, and then for some reason they weren't able to put that on the road. Now, I would wager this is largely down to the same inconsistencies that we have seen, especially from Yakpang in previous years.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So they, like, when they actually were on, they were on. I felt like they took games of Shanghai. Yes, that was a Shanghai that had the sandbags filled and whatnot. Fair enough. But I think that team showed that it could have been better than it was. And it's now down to the coaches to sort of like kind of, bring some consistency into their performances. And I think this is also as a coaching season, this is sort of make or break for Cookie.
Sure.
Like, what kind of a coach is he? Is he the coach that led the Mayhem to some of the best results, or is it the coach that, like, almost had the Mayhem bottom out? OG was his choice, right?
This is one of those situations now where, I mean, Kookie can really pull out some magic and get a lot of respect if he can turn this New York roster into a winning roster. Because when we're going to get to this, when we talk about the rankings, I still have high expectations for this team. And despite how scuffed their roster looks flexibility-wise, I think they still have the talent to reach some of these expectations. And if they fail to reach them, and this is an underperforming team that's going to end up in bottom half, then we got some issues.
Yeah.
So Flora and Yaki, first of all, do we agree that this is the best part of their roster?
Oh,
anyone else?
Sure.
You guys agree with that statement, or maybe not? Yiska's thinking about it.
Well, it certainly isn't the sports.
Yiska is not sure if he thinks this is the best part about their roster.
I think so. It has to be. I
Yeah.
think I would have liked to have another DPS if you can afford it. I'm thinking like Kellen is a very good talent, but you definitely want a second tank for this aforementioned. Like I can't shit on Faults or Vancouver and then not say that Kellen will have the same issue. I just think he's a different talent level. I think that said, okay, you ready for this? I'm going to make enemies here. I think there's a very good chance that Kellen will be Muse of this season.
Damn, you're hurting my soul. You're hurting my soul.
I can't.
I'm not even.
I don't know enough about.
Not even talking about the dynasty. You're hurting my soul. Let's talk about Kellen. Let's talk about the tank line. So background, he is by and this is really important to know. To me, he's like the mag coming into the season as a rookie. Mm-hmm. Now, for all the fans that are like, oh, Mag, that guy, just be very clear that when Mag came into the season, he was like the tank of contenders coming into the season. I don't know what the fuck Washington did, but they ruined him. Now, talking at Kellen, maybe Mag ruined himself. I'm not going to just blame the team.
True.
I don't know what
that's
happened.
What I was thinking.
He could have ruined himself. Maybe the team. Maybe it's a combination of factors. Maybe everything ruined him. Maybe the city of DC ruined him. I don't know. Enough about Mag. My point is, Kellen is kind of like, I don't think he's quite Mag level in reputation, but he's the closest tank to being Mag level in reputation coming out of contenders. So I would be very upset to see Kellen flop if that happens. I'm not saying he will. I hope he doesn't, and I don't think he will. I mean, then again, I said the same thing about Mag.
Right.
Yeah, you really shouldn't. Like, then again, at the same time, you are playing a tank, and tank is the role that, like, if your team sucks, you look like shit.
Yeah.
Tank is the first role that looks like complete shit if your team is not good, right? So, unfortunately, tanks live and die. And this is, by the way, a minor commentary on the game design of Overwatch, in such that tank is such a role that is, the success of tank is so highly determined by the skill level of your teammates, which is partially why tank is fucking bad to play in Overwatch 1, because you literally can't play the game, enjoy the game, or win the game unless your other teammates are good, whereas at least other roles can carry. Tank, you're just like, well, I hope I get healed. Cross your fingers, roll some dice. And that that gameplay extends to the Overwatch League level, where if your team sucks, I don't care what tank, you can put Super on the LA Valiant, you can swap Silver 3 with Super, LA Valiant aren't winning. I'm fucking sorry, they're not. If your team sucks, your tank looks fucking bad. That's the truth. So if New York suck, then Kellen's gonna look awful. He's just gonna look bad. I don't know. There's only so much you can do there, but I think he's got the skill. The problem is, we go into a solo tank game, he doesn't play off tanks, obviously, because he's a main tank player. He's gonna have to learn off tanks from scratch. It would be really good for New York to get a second tank and an off tank, but bro, time's running out.
Yep.
I mean, they needed to get that. Maybe they already have one. Maybe their 6 players randomly an off tank. But possibly. I mean, we don't know. I can't assume anything. I just have to assume that the 5 players they have is all they have, because they just doesn't sound like they have another player. I think legally they're supposed to have another player, but it just doesn't feel like they do. So I'm just gonna pretend they don't. Kellen is one of the most exciting rookies coming into this year, but I feel like he's been put onto a team that is, I want to say they're built for success, but they're set up for failure, if that makes sense.
100%. Oh, I hear you. Like, easily. Like, Kellen, along with the rest of this team, have like a Herculean effort in front of them. I think him especially leading the boulder carry, right? You're stepping into a role that is being reworked, retooled. You have multiple heroes that are new, be it Doomfist, be it Orisa, be it God knows whatever the hell else they do, whatever other changes. Now Winston's got like a zappy little pew pew move. Cool. Like, we don't know how those changes are going to affect things. I can't imagine him being like all that tragic on his typical main tanks That being said, now you have to pilot the flex tanks. Now you have to worry about whatever Doomfist or Orisa looks like. Like, I hear what you're saying, and I trust and believe in the confidence that you have in Kellen, but it's tough for him to do that alone. That would be, I think, a success as is. And then you look at the rest of the team, and it feels like everybody also has to do this. It's like the DPS probably are the safest bets. You look at the supports, one of them is going to have to play main support. I don't think that either of them are bad enough to be like tragic at it, just like how I'm judging Kellen, but there's so much like other heavy lifting that this team has to do and other questions that they have to answer and things that they just have to gamble and Las Vegas their way out of this. I can't in good faith tell you this team is good.
What is okay? Now I gotta ask you again. I guess, like, what is good?
What is good? Above middle of the table.
Okay.
What is good, baby? Don't anyway. Above middle of the table is good.
Yeah. Shit, I'd even like to see them consistently middle of the table. I think that would be a fucking success.
Have we all talked about Kellen? I think we have now. Why don't we talk about, before we get any further, before we get Joe's good or not good rating, why don't we talk about the supports real quick?
Mm-hmm.
You brought over Gangnam Jim from Florida Mayhem. Got Myung Bong from Boston Uprising. So Myung Bong's finally escaped from Huck. But he's almost stepped out of the fire and out of the frying pan into the fire a little bit here. It's a double flex support line. Now, if this was a double flex support meta, great. Good job. Well done, Kooky. You've nailed it. If there was even one main support on this team, you'd think, oh yeah, pretty good support line. You've whoever the fuck main support, and then two really good flex supports. Yeah, I like it. It's good. Sounds great. You know, this is a team that probably should, like, I think Jexa could have landed on this team. You know, you get Jexa, Myeongbong, Gangnam Jin. Sounds like a solid backline. I go for that.
That's two thumbs up things up. Yep.
2 thumbs up from me, but that's not the case. That's not the world we live in. The world we live in does not have a main support. Now, I know what you're all thinking. I think there's some people listening out there like, well, do you need a main support? You know, isn't there all this rumor and talk about double flex support? I'm like, could be, but there also could very easily be a single patch, one new hero released that completely flips shit over. You know, it only takes such a small detail change for a main support to just come flying through the doors, Reddit Lucio style, and boom, now somebody's going to have to be your Lucio player. Yep. And you have 2 flex supports. So that's what I'm saying. When the team has no flexibility, only one patch change can screw them at any point. Any point. So I'm worried. I think sadly, I think the supports are the weakest part of the roster.
Yeah, and it sucks too, man. Like, how is this the all we're getting? The 6th man better be good. I'll tell you that much right now. Come power rankings, if the 6th man is some goofy troll signing, then I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get the pitchforks out and
forget about the 6th man right now.
I'm sorry,
because we'll assume it because it is a troll signing. So just work with what you got on the 5. Work with the 5 you got, Joe.
It can't be good, bro. It can't.
Work with the 5 you got.
It can't. It tilts me to no end that, like, it feels so. New York right now feels like I got half my Amazon package in the mail and they just left the rest of it at the warehouse. Like, where are my boxer briefs, bro? I had a couple books, like 1 tank, 2 DPS. Sick, bro. I hope you roll snake eyes. Like, it would be tragic to have these caliber of players. Which good.
What did you guys think about Lastro and Iris? I wasn't here for that.
I thought they were alright. I think they're pretty good. Like, I think Harsha had like some positive things to say when it came to like flex supports, like transitioning well. And I tend to agree. I don't think it's going to be like that crazy to have somebody like maybe Yunbong be able to play like a Lucio to a decent degree. 100%. Like, yeah, probably. My issue for New York is that they like the whole roster feels like it has to do that. So it's just more ways for them to lose the gamble, where it's like, well, can Kellen play Doomfist if he has to? Can he play Orisa if he has to? Can he play the Diva if he has to? Can he play Sigma? Like, what about the DPS? Like, is Flora actually this cracked fucking, prospect that we just really didn't get to see last year? Is Yaki going to continue to be good? I think that's a safe bet, but everything feels like it's just super questionable because they don't have any redundancy. It is like as lean as it gets without like breaking any rules. And I'm cool with being lean and mean, but this is just like, bro, do you need like a protein shake? This is rough.
Yiska, your thoughts on we'll just focus on supports for now, mainly.
So, I mean, Gangnam Jin and Myeonbong sort of feel like they are suffering from the same disease last season.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we're in a not that good team, probably a pretty good player, especially the season before they were considered a good player. And now we're kind of in this limbo state where we're like, are they still good? Can they still do it? One of them will have to pick up Lucio. Not sure who would do that. I think they have something to prove, especially Myeonbong. For him, it's true. I think more so than Gangnam maybe.
Sure.
Because Gangnam did have that success with Florida for a while Myeonbong really never had it with Boston, I would say. But yeah, it's like, it's a weird combination. I would have definitely liked it more if they had gotten someone in from the back line. Like a main support or something. I would feel much more confident. This team is also, once again, weird to me. Because, okay, so you keep Flora, right?
Yeah.
And then, like, Gangnam Jin and Myeonbong probably weren't too expensive for you to get.
Probably not.
But you probably had a lot of competition on Kellen and Yaki. So what did you tell these guys? Right? Like, are you paying them top dollar? Or, like, is there maybe, like, a way you could have used your resources in a way that now leaves you with more than 5 players? Right?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. Like, it's not a team that has cheaped out, right? Like, we still have some pretty good pieces here. But I'm very concerned for their season, man. Like, once again, I think they'll just be super streaky. I think I kind of agree. I think we are sort of overestimating how hard it is going to be to play a feasible Lucio. Problem is, to play a Stellar Lucio, it's like,
yeah, that's
now there's like 2 people in the Overwatch League that have ever done that, right?
Yeah. 100%.
So we'll see how important that will be, to be the mechanical Lucio player, to be the guy that knows the ins and outs, like the timings, be able to track while ward riding, like just be the funny ass troll EJ Gone, right? But maybe it's fine to just like speed boost your team into a ball, and then like at the end, who stands it's fine, right? Like, Yaki is going to handle this. So I think this is entirely meta dependent. I think. Do you want me to like outline a range?
We'll get there.
Okay.
All right, let's outline the range. Have I talked about sports yet? I think I did. So yeah, let's talk about where the kind of macro of this team a little bit more now, after discussing their team a little bit. I think we've outlined a lot of their weaknesses. It's crazy because their strengths are wild. So if you get the perfect meta, let's talk about what the perfect meta looks like for a team like this. Perfect meta is Yaki probably gets to play Tracer, Florida gets to play like an Ashe or a hit scan. Winston is amazing. Kellen gets to play his best hero on the Winston, and it's a double flexible meta. You get to play Zen Ana or something stupid like that, right?
Yeah.
And then that's you. If that is the meta, then NYXL is by far one of the best teams in that meta that you can find. Just simply one of the best. They're incredible at that meta. Now, if you don't play that, if that's not the meta, then whoops, it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be really bad. Well, I don't know. It's gonna be really bad. It's just gonna be extremely difficult because now a bunch of players are going to have to pivot into things they're not comfortable in, and you're going to have to hope that these players are flexible as shit. But problem is, I've never seen it. I've never seen these players flex into the roles they're going to have to flex into. Now, strangely, I'm actually more confident in players like Kellen to do that because I think, well, he's just going to have to. I mean, maybe I shouldn't be, but every tank's going to have to just do that. So at least in my defense of Kellen, it would be that, well, if Kellen's going to have to flex into tanks he's not familiar with, so does everyone else.
So is Piggy.
Least, well, not even the solo tanks, just all tanks. At least like every other tank is in the same situation he is. Right? Whereas the support situations, like that was totally avoidable.
Yep.
I don't know. In some ways, NYXL's not that far off from having similar issues as Houston. Just that Houston has, is it one more DPS? Right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
well, I wasn't here to talk about Houston, but you know, I would only have Houston a little bit higher than NYXL, but not even by that much. And that's the one extra DPS does help a lot. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I probably rate off tanks a little bit higher than main tanks if we're going to talk about solo tanking. That's meta dependent as well, but like just generally speaking. So yeah, I mean, I got to put them one below Houston, wherever Houston is. I wasn't here to talk about Houston, but for me, New York is probably a team that I think is most likely middle of the pack. I mean, they could fall very low if things just really don't go well for them, but it would require teams like the Vancouvers and the Parises of the world to really step up big time, maybe even Mayhem. So I'm going to say for me, New York are anywhere between 5 and 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. It's a 4 in NA. That's a 4-team range. So 5, 6, 7, or 8. Because they could land on a great meta and they could be top 4. Or they could just be, you know, bottom half of NA because they get fucked by meta and they have their flexibility is not great. But player quality wise, maybe they still just like gatekeep worse teams because they simply have better players. I mean, I can see that.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I think like best case, like you just like rolled the nuts at the craps table. Yeah, I can see them challenging Houston probably. Do I think that's like feasible for the entire season? Probably not. I think they could probably reach 5th, and then it's like a big swing down to like 8, 9, probably somewhere in there for me. Another thing to kind of, or I'm actually kind of interested in hear you guys mull over this, but I think a team like New York probably doesn't do fantastic when it comes to like international competition because of like the meta diversity that like the other region is going to bring, and you just don't have the flexibility to kind of like match that or be able to like adapt to it. So it feels like another like Dallas Justice situation where they're going to run like, or maybe even a little Atlanta in some ways, where they run kind of like what they know, and like if it works, then it works, and we rolled the dice and it just, you know, poggers. But like there's not going to be a ton of like agility from this team in terms of strategic depth. It feels like, is that weird to say?
No, that makes perfect sense. Like I think once again, like that, I feel like that it's a role. You almost have to ascribe a pretty big range to them because of that, depending on how long like the meta that they're good at lasts. I think they probably won't be as underwhelming as they were last season. I think they're very clearly going to. I think they're stronger than Boston in my eyes. But maybe not by much.
I don't think by much. I think they have to do some like serious work in whatever metas that like are going to be like excellent for them, because I think Boston's like going to be the more consistent team over the season. Like you're almost guaranteed for New York to just like bottom out a stage and just like be pretty bad.
Yeah. Now
whereas Boston probably can battle.
I think I'm being pretty hypocritical in terms of like evaluating the entire situation because I had Houston pretty high last episode. For some reason, I can't go this hard for NYXL. I think my range would also reasonable range is probably 6 to 9. Yeah, they are definitely like 6 to 9. They're like in that Justice range. Justice, Toronto, definitely stronger than Toronto though.
Yep.
Like Boston is in there. I think you could talk about Mayhem being in there, Eternal being in there. That's sort of like, yeah.
Agreed. And I think like for Houston in particular, like I don't think that 5th seed is like guaranteed by any means for a lot of the same reasons we talk about in NYXL. Like there are some questions there. Granted, they have a coaching staff that I trust way more than I do for NYXL, if I'm going to be completely honest. And I do like the depth at their DPS and some of their, like, I don't think they're too far off caliber wise. I like Pelican Merrick quite a bit. I think Dante's quite good, to be completely honest with you. Yeah, I like their flexibility, even just if it's just a little bit more. Because a lot of like the rest of it, it's like solo tank. Yeah. A lot of the same questions. Solo, not solo, but like double flex support. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Like same kind of questions. What edges it out for me is the little bit more flexibility at DPS. Because I think like peak meta against peak meta, New York, Houston, I think they can battle. Who's going to be more consistent over the season? It feels like Houston.
And, why? Just because the one extra player?
One extra player, and I rate Jungpuck's coaching staff way higher than I do New York's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know. Like, you can only do so much coaching when your toolkit is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, how much coaching can you do to get Lastro or Iris or Lucio or Gangnam Jim and Myeongbong or Lucio when they don't have one? There's only so much coaching. I mean, the solution is you just get a Lucio player. You just get a main support player. Because, like, trying to coach that into a player that doesn't have it when you have to go up against players
who do have it,
like Funny Astro, who's like,
yeah,
it's not just him. You have some god tier main supports who can play some crazy shit at a high level in this league, and that applies to every role. Just by the way, but you are never, ever competing against a caliber player like a Funny Astro or a Lee Jae-gon. If you're forcing a flex sport to swap onto this hero that they don't play. It will take them so long to get there, if they can even get there at all. So, yeah, I mean, I don't even know if coaching can help you there. It can help you in some ways, but pretty limited. Role swaps don't always work. I mean, there's a reason they don't often work. Just because the skill set and how much time you have to put into master something is completely different. It's just, it can be insurmountable. I don't even know how many effective support role swaps we've seen.
Not many.
Like, I mean, I've spoken plenty to Custer about this, who went through the same role swap from flexible to main support, and he's in his own words, and he said this publicly as well on his own streams. It's like when you go from flexible to main support, it's not like, oh, I'm just playing Lucio now, lol. You're playing Lucio against people that are like unbelievably good at Lucio, and you're some Zen player coming through, or you have to learn from scratch. It's not easy. You cannot compare. It is fucking hard. So yeah, there's that. I don't know. I'm only willing to put them like one below Houston. Like, and so what did I say for them? I say fifth. So I would probably have Houston as maybe number 6 right now, which means on an average day, probably NYXL 7th. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, what is even my top 5 then? In no particular order, my top 5, something like Shock, Dallas, Glads, into Atlanta. Fuck, maybe Houston, which means I guess NYXL might be 6th for me at best. I said 5th best, and that would mean they can maybe beat Houston, which on paper they could, depending on the meta. So yeah, they kind of, to me, Houston, NYXL are kind of floating around the same zone. That makes sense. But I think they're both above both of those teams are above the Toronto, Washington.
Oh, easily.
What was the other team I said? Toronto, Washington.
Boston.
No, I said Toronto, Washington, New York as the same tier.
Right.
Well, let's just put them all the same. I don't know. I'll just slap them all together. Houston, New York, Toronto, Washington. That's like another 4 piece. You know, I have my top 4, middle 4, and then 5 teams at the bottom. I don't know. Is kind of what I'm looking at.
I like that.
So yeah, that's my any final thoughts on New York as we wrap up?
No, I certainly hope they have more coming because this team deserves to be within like a clear top 5. I don't think they're too far off from top 5.
Keep hoping because it's not going to be easy for them to get anybody.
Nope.
No, I agree.
It's not going to be easy for them to get anybody coming.
Yeah.
Not with their setup.
Just banking on some signings they've yet to announce because those crispy videos are hard to make. Let's just hope them YouTube editors are fast at work.
They needed to bring so many more players to the United States.
Maybe they get one of the Boston tanks.
Yeah, but even then, that's a meme. It's like, what are you going to get? Marvel? You're going to get another main tag?
Yeah.
Your choices are Marvel and NYXL, because I assume they wouldn't want Punk because of the full Korean thing.
Yeah,
right. You're not gonna get someone. You're not gonna get Piggy.
No. I mean, I'd be charitable if even giving like putting NYXL on this roster. I'm already like, okay, this is better. This is a lot safer.
No, it's not. He's just a much worse Kellen. You just got a bench rider for Kellen. Like this is what does that do? It doesn't do anything for the team.
Oh,
I'd rather just not have NYXL there. You know.
Yeah,
he's
never mind. Never mind.
Just the worst Kellen. Like what the fuck? He does nothing.
So, I don't know why I had it in my head that he was a flex.
What New York should have done is kept Kalios.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't keep Kalios.
Agreed. 100% agreed.
Unlucky.
Yep.
You gave Kalios way to Justice, and now Justice might beat you.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
It's possible.
That could legitimately happen, and then New York would be big sad. Okay, that is so. The conclusion for New York is, if the meta works out for you, boom, you have one of the best teams. But the meta do be fickle, which means more likely than not, meta's not going to work out for you, and you are not prepared to play in bad metas. So,
yeah,
you better hope. You better hope you're lucky at the roulette table. Is all I'm going to say. That is going to be our team preview for New York Excelsior for the 2022 season. Next up, I'm going to do the final team in all of North America. The only team we haven't done yet, as I get my wallpaper out, it is the Paris Eternal. And their glorious cock logo. Love it. I really do. It's got I think it's my favorite logo in the Overwatch League because it has the infinity symbol.
Yeah.
It's just a good looking cock, and what they did with the tail at the end was really cool as well. I don't know. It's just a very creative logo. They nailed it. I think branding wise, it actually is my favorite logo in the entire league.
Yeah,
legitimately.
Definitely up there. It's solid overall.
But what their logo does well, unfortunately, their team quality. Now let's actually talk about the team. So Glista, Naga, Dan, Vistolic, Redro, Khan. They bring back 5 out of how many players they have last season? They bring back 5 players.
Yep.
7.
And Glista comes in as a new. They had 7 last. Yeah. Okay. So 5 out of 7. So we lost. Who did we lose? We lost Oni God and
Suna.
Suna.
Who? Suna.
Yeah.
Lost Oni God and Suna. And we got Glista. So J-Mac extends his influence and reach, and he says, "Glista, come here, son." And he does. I think Glista had other offers, did he not? Did he have other opportunities? And he chose Paris, didn't he?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think he chose Paris. I think he could have gone elsewhere, but he chose Paris. So
should say a lot.
I think I've said before, like, you know, what was the joke I said before? Oh yeah, you know, Glista coming over to Paris, like, you know, J-Mac better be on one knee offering him in the ring and no prenup for that marriage. And then Glista's like, all right, baby, I'm coming in. That's a good deal. You know, it better be something like that. Like, But Paris, they're ready. They're all in. They're going to be all in NA, all on the team house finally, not on high ping. I mean, this is all plus bonuses for them.
Yep.
You could say that they have existing synergy to work with.
Mhm.
Now, you could also say that, is this a team that you want to have kept together based on last year's result? And that's like a mixed response. Like, it's like yes and no, because they did well last year based on what they
Mhm.
had, but it's probably still not a real like super winning roster. But at the same time, that might not be Paris's goal. I think Paris's goal is to have a roster, probably a lower end roster, be as competitive as they can be. And in that regard, they've actually upgraded. So call it a win.
I'd say
Maybe?
so. I'd say this is, a
This is a pretty good team, Joe.
without getting a vocabulary lesson or some sort of dictionary thrown at my head. I'll say this: I think the Paris Eternal, competes with the Florida Mayhem for a team that's going to, upset a lot of teams. I think coming into this season, I don't think people are like all that. Not prepared. I think that's a little too flowery, but I do think Paris has what it takes to compete. I think they have the flexibility to. They have far fewer questions than many other teams. It just comes down to caliber. I look at Glister. I like what I've seen in the past. If he can bring even an iota of that to the table, then that's fantastic for Paris. I think Naga had a breakout season last year. It's kind of criminal that not enough people are talking about him. I look at the tank line. I think it's fine enough. It removes any kind of like giant glaring questions. Same thing with the supports. I think the support line's probably second, maybe 1A, 1B for like the best lineup that Paris has. Like, I pretty high on Paris. It just comes down to like widening out that scope, and do they have enough to compete with everybody else that has leveled up? When it comes to like consistency or like viability across the season as a whole, I see a lot of things that I like. There's fewer questions than a team like Houston, a team like New York, a team like Toronto. There are fewer questions. Yes,
At least
100%. Yes, caliber. That's where the skill kind of comes in, and it's
and
debated.
we'll get to caliber in a second. Yiska,
Yes.
your first impression.
Again, like, I gotta say, like, if you're in a position where you can only, like, you gotta sign 6 players, if you gotta double up, then I like the solution to do it on the tank position. I think, yeah, generally, here's the one thing I will say. Slightly upgrading in the Overwatch League probably means you're staying about same. Right? Because everyone, like, the tide is constantly moving up. Like, no team really got worse. Everyone got better. Right?
Well, can you stay the same but they're only doing a marginal increase. Other teams are doing more than marginal increases.
Yeah.
You just look at Vancouver. So can you stay the same when you
maybe
have Vancouver coming up?
Yeah, maybe they are,
for example,
relatively, maybe slightly weaker, but I mean, we'll see how this develops over the season. I think they are once again in a similar position. I would think they are once again, like, probably going to be in the same position of, like, striking upwards, turning some heads with some upset victories, but probably around the 0.5 win rate mark, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think
that'd be a W for them.
Yeah,
that'd be good news for them.
I don't think there's ever a situation where they are once again, or like in contention for the lowest spots based on what we've seen last year. I think I trust JMac to be very strong strategically coming into the next year, and therefore, like, giving them a kind of like a sufficient, strategical baseline in order to function. I hope Glister, like, this is the one question mark based on the language, but then again, like, Glister seems to be able to integrate well. I hope he gets to perform and gets to be like this type of player that actually has hard carry performances. I think Naga is a fine flex DPS. And then Khan, I mean, really strong frag support, right? Like overall, this is just a good team. But yeah, I don't know. I think if I can choose, I kind of want at least one more DPS player on this team.
Hmm. That's fair.
I'm debating whether I'd want one more DPS or one more support. Maybe DPS as well, just because of DPS being more of a role that demands flexibility than other roles in the past. But we'll get to the specifics in a second. My first impression is that I think they've done a very minor upgrade, which I hope turns out well. I actually can't remember if Glista played a lot of Tracer. I can't remember if Glista has one of the better Tracers or not, because that could be a downgrade, because only God did have a pretty good Tracer, actually. And if Glista doesn't bring that to the table, that might be an issue. So let's talk about the DPS. Actually, do I have any final thoughts on that? My first impression. I think the first impression is that I don't think this team moves too far from where they were last year. Needle-wise, I think it's very similar to their last year's placement, with maybe some difficulties. And unfortunately, I think if there's any direction they move in, it might be slightly lower than last year. Unless they overperform again. But then again, last year's overperformance, I think, had a lot to do with strength of schedule, which is kind of out of the question this year, because everyone has the same strength of schedule. Now, not in terms of direct qualification for certain events, but in terms of your overall 24 games, right? 24 games in North America. You play each team twice. You will not have a situation where you just get to bully the quote-unquote bottom teams. And also, the bottom teams, quote-unquote, this year are not just bottom feeder teams that are going to go winless. Like, London and Vancouver are going to take games. They're going to be competitive teams at a minimum. They're going to be... look, they could even still come 12th and 13th, but they will be teams that will challenge you. They're not just going to roll over. So Paris is not going to get any of those easy games, quote-unquote, to just farm for free Ws to get that 0.5 record, right? That 0.5, I mean, I think that would be an achievement for them if they reach that 0.5 again. So that's my first kind of impression on this team. Yeah, let's just go down the list. Let's go DPS first. So Gliss is obviously the talk of the town for the Paris Eternal. Pretty high profile pickup. Again, if you're a Paris fan, you can thank J-Mac for that one. He really flexes friendship powers to get Glister over. And beyond that, they've kept Naga, who was actually pretty breakout from last year in terms of we had a reasonable echo meta. He was one of the only Western DPSs to seriously play fire as well, which the Asian teams abused quite a lot, but the Western teams not quite so much. So Naga and Paris kind of carve their own niches and strength out based on his capability on these projectile heroes, which is pretty good. So if that happens again, it will be good. Now, I still don't know if their highs and their strengths are good enough to get them far enough, because to me, Naga would have to get another Echo meta, right? Surely he'd have to get another Echo or Fire meta. I don't know if there's other picks in there that he's going to be bringing to the table that are going to be good enough to compete, because you are going to have to go up against some nutty players, even in the middle of the table. You know, consider that I may be wrong. Sorry, Houston fans, but I have to say it. I have Houston in the middle of the pack. You got fucking Pelican on that team.
True.
I have New York in the middle of the pack. You got fucking Yaki on that team. So if Paris want to be fighting for middle of the table, which I think would be a W for that team, I think Paris should be happy. They'd be pleased to be middle of the table. You have to go up against some really good players in the middle of the table when you talk about names like Pelican and Yaki, right? Those are now guys on middle of the table teams. So Naga, good luck. Glister, ideally should be able to compete on that level, but I still don't know. Just looking at his hero pool here, I genuinely can't remember any of his Tracer performances. I don't know if that should worry me or not.
No, I think it does, if I'm going to be completely honest.
His Sombra was good. I think his Sombra last year was really good, but I can't even remember any games of him playing Tracer. That's probably on me. I'll admit it. You know, that's a lapse in my memory. Must have just gone into my memory black hole. I'm sorry, but it's not there.
I mean, even branching from that, like when you look at like the typical like traditional DPS lineups throughout Overwatch history, there are some that are going to require like a tracer and a hit scan. Your tracer player is Glister, more than likely. Naga thrives on those like hardcore projectile heroes, like you said, Echo, the Pharahs, like is where's this hit scan coming in? Or is Naga going to be playing a tracer against somebody like Sparkle or Striker? That's the concern.
Yeah. Boston could be a middle of the pack team.
Yeah.
Boston's going to be a rival team for Paris this year, and they got fucking Striker on that team. It's scary.
Yep. Yes, sir. It's not clear. It's not a clear cut like punch above their weight team. It does feel a little meta dependent. Like I think they have some like decent ceilings, like much in the same way that a New York or maybe even a Houston, given a perfect meta, can do some big things. And I do think Paris can do some big things. But things would look a whole lot cleaner if there was like a second like DPS to round out this team. I think they would genuinely like be a confident middle of the pack placement right now. Outside of that, as we look at it right now, Glister, Nagathon, Vastola, Dredro, Khan, it's tough, and I think a lot of that comes from the DPS.
Yiska. You like a bit of Glister, I know.
I like a bit of... Yeah. There is something to be said about players that you think are just going to be like transformational talents and then them never really arriving there. And like when Krusty picked up Glister, I was like, this is it, bro. This now it's like, and he wasn't bad. He still had a good season. He just didn't have a lip season, you know? He didn't have a flatter, he didn't have a leaf season. And of course he doesn't.
To be fair, those are pretty hard to have.
Yeah. But I thought, like, when I saw him in Contenders, I legitimately thought he could have that. I think he's a true hyperflex at heart. So I don't fear that this is going to be an issue from that regard. Like, if they have to play double projectile, I don't think that's a problem for Glister. But yeah, it is going to be. The problem is, like, at best, he's just going to have a very good performance on an underdog team. But, like, I don't know. Like, in my heart, I still feel like Glister should be the guy hosting the trophy with an MVP nomination, at least to his name, right? And that his career never went that way is sort of like...
Do you think he's got the Yaki-esque put the team in the backpack carry kind of level?
I mean,
because
yeah,
on a team like Paris, he might end up having to be that guy. But can he be that guy?
No, I don't think he can anymore.
Yeah, I don't think so either, just to be clear.
I think
which is scary, right?
I think he's very smart as a player. He's not beast. He's not someone that just goes, okay, I just refuse to use here. Like, he's not... I don't know when and where it happened. His mechanics used to be otherworldly. His reaction time was nuts.
You know what it is? I think it's harder to be that 1v11. Well, now it's going to be 1v9. I think it's harder to be that 1v9 player on a hit scan role than it is on, unless you're Arns in 2020, than it is on a flex DPS role. That's why when you think about these insane like 1v9 performances, it's usually like the Yaki leave kind of guys who are on flex DPS on a tracer, most likely, who pull out these performances, or Proper in certain cases as well. Not that Proper's had too many weak supporting cast members, but you know, just saying he's the kind of player that can pull out the 1v9s.
Yeah.
I think Glister being on a hit scan and also not being, I mean, yeah, we are in a game that is just stacked with so many good hit scans. It's just like, if you were to rate Glister on a hit scan 1 through to 20 or maybe even more, bro, I don't even think he hits the top 10.
No.
You know what I mean? And that's why it's just like,
It's tough.
yeah, I don't see it. You're an upgrade on Oni God, hypothetically, but not enough to push Paris even to the mid-table. This is a team that's trying to break the mid-table, and I don't even know if they can off of Glisto. But he's the one that most likely can and is going to give them the power to do so, but it's looking rough.
Yeah.
And now this is where I buy into the notion of getting a third DPS more and more, because I'm like, fuck, maybe they do need a third DPS.
No,
I
just
don't
enough to smooth it out.
I don't think Paris will get the go there. I think Paris are done. I think they're not going to buy another player.
Yeah,
I think the budget limits them to only having 6. And if you're only going to have 6, I think you need 2 tanks, understandably.
Mhm.
I would also bank on 2 tanks and not anything else. If I was only allowed 6 players, I'd get 2 tanks. So I get it. I do get it. Are we ready to talk about tanks? I think we are.
Yep.
Dan Vostola. Now, to be clear, the off-season strategy for the Paris Eternal was that they were actually in the market for another off-tank. We are aware publicly that Poco was given an offer.
Mm.
I believe it was a minimum offer. So he got the 50k, declined it, went to London, rejoined Christopher. So there was a world that maybe Poco could have been on this team. Poco didn't join. Vostola gets to rejoin instead and be reunited with Dan. Now, Vostola originally replaced Elevote on this team last year. And I think he ended up being
You're right.
good enough that he was kind of like almost an upgrade on Elevote in some ways. And Dan was one of the few tanks in the Western region that actually brought out a ball, looked reasonable on it.
Very flexible, weirdly enough.
And, Paris was almost like a scuffed Chengdu because they could play the fire, they could play the ball.
Yep.
Yeah, but obviously the skill gap there is maybe a little bit much, but there they had the capability, they had some extra flexibility that the rest of NA did not have. But are Dan and Vostola enough to push them to the mid-table? Joe?
The more I think about it, the more it is more difficult in that mid-table talk for a lot of these teams is going to be like a dogfight. Like we are arguing like minor like quibbles here, quibbles there. Like we still don't even know what game we're playing, if I'm to be completely honest. Like
hopefully Overwatch 2.
Hope ideally it's not Snake, right? Like I look at Don and Vostola and I'm like, yes, you should be able to cover all your bases. This should be fine. Again, it comes down to caliber. Like, are you going to compete with, Piggy on his best hero or Kellen on his best hero? Probably not. Let's be honest. Is that something we can count on all season? It kind of depends. It's like if New York and Houston are teams that like need big metas to like peak, Paris just needs to like just be like fine. Like they're rolling for metas that like they need to avoid, if that makes sense. Like they're just like gonna be like the fine. They almost feel in a way like a worse Boston, where they should be all right for the most part. They have some holes 100% when it comes to DPS. Like there are just certain like DPS meta games that they're just gonna be a little tragic on, if I'm gonna be completely honest. And some that they should be good, but like for the most part, like it feels like a safe team. I just don't see them like leaping off the page. And if there is a way for them to, it might just be that Don gets to like flex his tank pool around and do some weird stuff. And they kind of did that last year, but it also, I think, was a slight detriment because they never really looked good on any one thing. They could just like play the field and be okay at it. And it kind of comes down to like, can their peers do that? It depends. It's in a weird way, they are kind of meta dependent. They're kind of meta dependent on everybody else like shitting the bed and them kind of like being the last man of the battle royale playing rat, PUBG off in a bush somewhere with their level 3 helmet, their level 3 backpack, and their meds, sitting in the zone, right? Like it feels like Paris has to outlast the rest of these teams that are going to be spiky.
Okay.
Does that
Yiska
come
still
from
not
the
back?
tanks though? I
I'm
don't
here.
know. It's tough. He's here.
Yiska, you're same to you then. Are Dan and Vistola enough to push Paris into the mid-table?
It's hard, man.
It's a loaded question because I'm assuming they're going to be below mid-table. So I've loaded that a little bit. I apologize.
Right.
You feel free to unload that if you'd like. I'll just put that out there for you. But do what you want with that.
I think like lower mid-tier table, I feel pretty good about. Maybe 8th. I don't.
Oh, we're not getting to rankings yet. We just want to talk about the tanks for now.
Okay, in terms of tanks, yeah, it's going to be hard for sure. I think the fact that they do have 2 is kind of nice. It will really depend on the type of meta that you have to run, because like if there's frequent switches between like off and main tanks based on like on a singular map, then I don't trust either player to be capable of doing that to the level that someone like Kellen would be, right?
Sure.
Just by the nature of their skill level, or Kalush, or you know, like even if we go outside the rookie sphere, like Hawk is more capable of that, and you know, so yeah, I'm a little concerned there, but maybe not overly so. I think they have some advantage over direct competitors for the likely slots they're going to come up with, namely that they do have 2 tanks. But yeah, like, I mean, if you had to or outline like which line is the weakness in this team, then you would have to say tank, I think.
So here's some of their closest rivals. How would you compare Paris to the Boston tank line of Marvel It's All Punk, or maybe even the Florida tank line of Someone Adam? Those are probably 2 of Paris's rivals this year. Yep. Where do they land? Does Paris have a weaker tank line?
So in terms of uprising, I'm questioning why you would even need a 3rd tank. Well, this is sort of like a weird champ situation where this makes me skeptical.
Well, they have one, so is it better or worse? I don't know. Like, it just happens to be there. So.
Yeah, it could signal that you have some issues filling those gaps, right? But at the same time, it's 3 tanks. How bad can it be, right?
Yeah.
Well, they've definitely filled it. You, mate, if you can't fill the gaps, 3 tanks, I don't know what the hell's going on. But
yeah,
that aside,
I think
do you trust the Boston tanks more? Or do you trust the Paris tanks more?
About the same, with maybe slight edge to Boston. And then I trust the Mayhem tanks more again than the Paris tanks.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm a little bit more bullish on Boston. I'm a little bit more questionable when it comes to Mayhem, just because like I've only heard good things. I haven't really seen them, so that's my bias, like my ignorance, where it's just like I've heard good things. I trust and believe that, and I've seen Don and Vistola's like fine. I think he's like going to do his job. I think he'll be all right. I can't remember like too many times last season where I was just like, oh my god, Vistola Pog. But like I can remember times where Don was genuinely pretty good, and I thought like he was like this like a standout main tank in like the bottom half of the league.
The reason why I ask is I'm just trying to gauge, is there a skill gap here between Paris and the rest of NA? And that could be in any role, but we're just talking about tanks right now. Is there a skill gap problem here, or maybe they're fine? And just remember the goal I'm outlining, and I'm loading this a little bit. I apologize, but a goal that I am outlining is that they are trying to break mid pack.
I don't think it's a problem. No, they're not far behind. I don't think so.
Yeah,
okay,
I think
let's go
close enough.
Let's talk about the support. I think I will say the supports are definitely one of the best parts about this roster, and and can I say something really hot here? I think maybe the supports are the best part of the roster.
I think so.
I think I like Dredro Khan more than Dan Vostola, Naga, and Glister.
Yep.
Legitimately. I think the support line might actually be the best part of our roster. Real talk.
After talking through the DPS, yeah, I would agree.
Because when I look at this, I'm like, more flexible than Irish Lastro.
Yep.
Khan on his best day can definitely compete with those guys too.
Yep.
I might even like Dredro Khan more than Faith, Crimzo, MCD, and there's 3 of them.
Yep.
I definitely like Dredro Khan more than the Vancouver supports. Even though that's hard because Master's on there. I do like Master a lot. But fuck it, I think Dredro Khan were really good last year. Both of them were outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is like I was going to say, like maybe Kalista doesn't have to be the carry, but then no, he does, because the carry from the support line is still hard to do.
Yeah,
it is still support at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I do think their support line is great. Generally speaking, I think if you're a Paris fan, you can be super proud of Dredro Khan. Really good stuff there. You're hoping for a standard conventional meta main support, flex support. I don't know what Dredro's flex support is like, but yeah. What are your guys' thoughts on that before we get into the rankings?
I think this if we were playing support the game, right? Like I think Dredro Khan like genuinely like punches way above their weight, just like in a vacuum. Like I think like some of those mid-pack teams that we're judging, like Boston, like Florida, like I think Dredro Khan are the favorites in those matchups. For me personally, I think Dredro throughout his career has been a playmaker on a role that like is difficult to playmake from. Has like a pedigree when it comes to like Mercy. I get it. Like it's a meme. I get it. Reddit all stars, but it goes without saying, like it's not just the Mercy, it's the Lucio, it's the Brig. Like he can cover all of his bases and then some. Khan looked like maybe a rookie of the year candidate early on last year. Obviously, that wasn't the case. Yeah, I quite like the support line, and like I said, like the more that we kind of talk through that DPS lineup, the more I'm like, yeah, the supports are the beacon here that they're kind of going to be banking on.
Yeah. Do you want me to range them?
Oh, you do whatever you want. How would you like to speak? You talk about Dredro Khan in whatever way you feel best. I'll give you that.
I think just Khan is very good. I'm not sure about Dredro. I think there's something to be said about Dredro sort of like shaping the way this team communicated last season, and like how it got much better once he was introduced. Yeah, I think that's a really solid backline. Now, let's look at some. Like, I think that's a better backline than Gangnam Jin and Myambong.
Yep.
I think that's a better backline than Mayhem. I think that's a better backline than London.
Yep.
That's a better backline than Vancouver.
Yep.
For the majority of the season, it's probably better than Justice.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's about it. Reasonably, right? Am I forgetting any teams?
I'd put them above Boston personally.
Yeah, maybe. It depends.
Like I'm high on Faith, just like I'm high on Molly, but I don't know. I think the support backline for Paris
MCD kind of good.
A little differently.
He's kind of good, dude.
No, MCD kind of good, but Khan also kind of good.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit closer, but I personally would put Paris above.
Yeah, I don't hate that. So yeah, I mean that's by what we just outlined. That's solid mid tier in terms of the backline.
Yeah, easily.
That's the one part of the roster I'm confident is mid tier. So let's break it down now. Could this team be mid tier? Do you rate them as mid tier? What's your range here? I'll go first. I think my range for this team is probably around a 8 to 11. I don't see them being the bottom 2. I'm willing to give Paris the benefit of the doubt that they're not going to be in the bottom 2. 8 to 11th, but I think they can go as high as 8. 7's getting tough because I think you're going to have to start beating. To get to 7th, you have to really get into that kind of NYXL tier. You have to start getting, you have to start moving around in the Toronto NYXL kind of level, and that's going to be rough, say what you will about Toronto Defiant, or like, oh, what's the direction of this team? Bro, they don't need a direction if their player quality is just higher than Paris. So, and no amount you can be J-Mac could be the best coach, but my guy can't make you click heads better when dudes on Toronto can just do that. So I don't know. That's all I'm saying. That's my position for Paris right now, which I think is optimistic.
I'm kind of in a similar boat. I think I'm probably around like 8 to 10. I think they can like waffle slightly higher, but like if we're doing like season wide, like they probably settle around 8.
So you think there are definitely 3 teams that they're going to be 100% better than?
Definitely 100% better than London. I think then it's just this like messy gray area. I think it's tough. That's a tough one. Just feeling wise as it stands right now, I'd say 8 to 10 feels good for me.
Okay. So far, no one willing to go above 8, Yiska? What do you think?
I thought it would sound funny if I said 7-11, and I actually believe it.
I don't hate that.
I think
okay.
You think they maintain 7 though?
I mean, possible. I think that like.
So, I mean,
I like. I'm getting more and more spicy takes. I think like once we get to the power rankings, we're going to reevaluate some of the top teams.
Yes, we are.
And I think I wouldn't hate. I don't think it's impossible for them to finish higher than Justice, for instance.
So, just for context, to get 7th, they have to be better than 2 out of the 3 of Toronto, New York, Justice. 2 out of the 3 they have to be better than.
Yep.
To get to 7th.
I think that's within the possibility, a range possibility. Hence why 7th, 8th, yes, has a much higher probability of happening. But 7th is definitely possible in the striking range. Yeah.
And they have to be better than their rivals, Boston.
Yeah, I think that's possible.
Which I would argue, outside the support line, Boston on paper probably stronger.
Yeah, I don't hate that.
With more flexibility.
Yeah.
So,
Boston's a tough ask. I think
and I know Boston have shat the bed before when they lost to Vancouver last year. True, but Boston's highs are higher than Paris.
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't know. I respect it. Hey, it's a hot take. I respect it. I respect the 7. But you would need a god season from Paris. I think a 7 would be an unreal season from Paris. That'd be like, bro, give whatever you're paying J-Mag, pay him more kind of season. You know what I'm saying? Holy shit. Okay, well, I think Paris have something good to build on. Yeah, it's a tough ask because they have something good to build on from last year, but also I feel like their ceiling is not too high, but it is what it is. Paris, they want to have a European team. They're showing a lot of loyalty to a lot of players. They have one upgraded position. They have the capability to impress. I don't think they're going to be a bottom feeder team, thankfully. I think the Paris fans can be comfortable in the fact that they're going to have a team that will take games, have legitimate upset potential, that you can't sleep on. You're definitely not winning a title. You'd be very happy to make it into the top 8. That's why you even said 8, because saying 8 means there is a world where Paris maybe squeaks into a tournament. Maybe. And you'd be super fucking happy with that. So
100%.
That's Paris Eternal. Hoping for the best. That's all of our NA previews done as well. Episode 224 wrapping up. Thank you so much for staying tuned with us for all these NA previews. Covered 13 damn teams. And now all we got left is to do the APAC teams. 7 of them.
Yes,
that'll be lots of fun. And after that, we'll be looking at power rankings and all the rest. So plenty to look forward to as we come into the start of the season, which will be happening really soon. So thank you guys. Thank you for being part of our episode, and we'll see you next time for 225. Peace out.